All right, welcome back to our series on the Maintenance and Reliability Best Practices Framework. We are within the maintenance management domain, and today we're talking about predictive maintenance. Predictive maintenance. It's a common term utilized for the assessment of condition using technology. And there are varying technologies, whether it's things like vibration analysis or ultrasound or infrared thermography. The assessment of condition via the use of technology is commonly called predictive maintenance. Does it predict a specific time period? Lots of debate about that. In my opinion, absolutely not. What it is telling you is that I predict this part is going to fail because there is a signature that is indicative of the eventual failure of that component. Assertion of time is subjective to the individual who's analyzing the data and, of course, the context of the asset and many, many other factors. So the precision of that is not necessarily fantastic. Now, it is, however, giving you a good understanding and window with which to understand, let's say, the planning and scheduling process so that we can have a minimal impact on the operation. So the predictive technologies reduce unplanned downtime. They don't do that by stopping the failure. They do that by giving you a forecasted understanding of impending failure so that you can make the replacement of a component when it is most convenient for the operation. Will it always be convenient? No. However, you want a maximum planning window, and predictive technologies gives you a maximum planning window. So we utilize techniques such as ultrasound and infrared thermography and vibration analysis, motion amplification, electrical signature analysis. Oh my God, it just goes on and on and on. Machine learning and lubricant analysis and other techniques to give us that maximum planning window. If we think about, say, the PF interval that we see commonly, and this being time, and our asset over its life, it degrades and we restore to base condition, it degrades, we restore to base condition, but eventually we get what's known as a potential failure. And this potential failure is, say, we contaminated a bearing. We didn't wipe off our grease gun. We pumped in some particles that exceed the tolerance of the bearing, and this bearing is eventually going to fail. We can find out way down here where we use our senses, or we can find out all the way up here where we're using ultrasound. In either case, what we want to know is what is the time window we're going to have to plan and schedule. So I can have this time window. Here's the eventual failure. I can have this time window. Tell me why that's happening. Or I can have this tiny time window of my senses. And which would you rather have? If you've got to work with operations and try to get time for the asset, would you rather have this little tiny time window where the bearing is noticeably hot, I can touch it and feel it, or I can actually hear it rumbling around with my own ears without ultrasound? That doesn't give me a lot of confidence that this thing can survive until it is convenient for the operation. We utilize predictive technologies to give us a maximum planning window. And what happens if this failure occurs? Not only is it inconvenient for the operation, but my costs go up. My costs go up because it's not just the bearing I'm going to replace. If it's a conveyor, it's likely I'm going to have to replace a roller element. If it's a fan, it's likely I'm going to have to turn a shaft because I scored it and made a nice oval in the pillow block, and I got to replace the pillow block. And so we use these techniques for two reasons: maximum planning window, less impact to operations, and lower overall reactive maintenance costs or repair costs because I'm not having ancillary damage to other components because I only have to replace the one that was picked up by the technology.